Hey everybody, it's Kneecap here, and in this video we're going to be talking about possible group finder improvements coming in Midnight and the possibility of maybe a solo queue coming to Mythic Plus, similar to Solo Shuffle in PvP. So this all stems from this little survey that was put out to some people, and I know it's like impossible to read here, but we'll kind of go through what each of these say, and people can mark whether they're interested or not interested in these things. I'll give you my responses as well on what I would say for this survey. And then we'll also talk about the possibility of solo queue, which some people are suggesting from this. This would be probably the very precursor to that, but I don't necessarily think solo queue will be coming. So the first one basically says Group Finder can create a group based on things that you select as leader. What this is really trying to do is getting people to put their own keys in, essentially, right? This is the whole idea here. So a lot of people complain about getting rejected from keys all the time. And what people always say is, well, list your own key then. If you list your own key, you can't get rejected. You can bring all the meta classes and push your key. And people just don't like to do that for multiple reasons. They don't like being in charge. They don't want to feel like that they need to have anything important. Like, what if they invite a tank and the tank doesn't know what to do? Now they need to somehow know they're out. There's all kinds of like issues. Like, those are things I think about as well. And I do very rarely list my own key. It's not really too much about being afraid. It's just more out of just I don't want to. Like, it's just like I don't feel like doing it. It is like added pressure or something, I guess, in some ways. So what I'm assuming this means is you can select like it's going to create the group for you, so you just click a button. And this is what people are thinking, maybe solo queue, and this could be like a precursor to that. But basically you have all your stuff set. I want people within 100 score of me. I want people with achievements maybe that I have, similar skill, similar whatever. I want people who want to do weekly keys, no levers, versus I want to push the key, right? And you just click a button and it's going to filter people based on that. So would I be interested in this? Yeah, I think that would be a good improvement to Group Finder. If I could just select all that and I knew everybody applying also had that same mindset, that would ease a lot of tension off me. Also though, if you are going to do stuff like that, you also risk yourself getting maybe some worse players than you would normally get. Either way, it is something I would be interested in. When we go into the next line, it's basically the group leader's key is resilient for the first key of the week. So if you don't know what resilient keys are, once you do, I believe it's plus 12s on every key, on every dungeon for that season, your key becomes resilient. Your keys become resilient, which means they don't drop below 12. You've already proven that you can do everything to a 12, and so it never drops below a 12 at that point. And when you do all 13s, it becomes resilient 13. When you do all 14s, it becomes resilient 14s. And you can essentially continually push up your keys by completing every dungeon on at least that level. And so this is for the first key of the week being resilient. So the first time you list your key, you have no fear that that key is going to go down. So if you have a plus 10 key, you really need a plus 10 for your vault. The first time you list it, you don't have to worry. So there's at least no worry the first time. If you time your key, great. Then you can go on pushing it, or you can lower it, whatever. And then the next time after that, you could go down. So for me personally, I don't really care about this. I can get up to 12s fairly easily. I have only pugged Mythic Plus this season, for example. Nothing special, so I don't have any friends helping me or anything like that. I've only pugged, and honestly, I've only not timed 3 keys. And I think I'm like 2 dungeons off of Resilient at this point, Resilient 12s. So for me, it doesn't really matter. But I could see this being a good thing, and it would stop people who are, or it would not stop people, but it would help people who are a little bit more worried, maybe list their own key. Another thing is group leaders get more crests. This is interesting. Just basically, hey, we'll literally give you stuff if you start making groups. I'm sure what Blizzard sees on their end, they hear the complaints and everything. I'm sure what they're seeing on their end, however, is that they're probably seeing all these people like trying to get into groups for keys, applying for keys, but only like very small percentage of those are actually listing keys. And they're like, wow, we would get a lot more keys run if just more people made more groups in general. Like, more people would be having fun, more people would be engaged in the game, It would be good for the game. It'd be good for the players. That's probably what they're thinking, right? And so, like, we'll just literally give you stuff if you list your thing. Am I interested in this? Yes, but only to an extent, because of the fact that if you go too far this route, what you're going to have is all the best players are going to want to run their own key, and nobody's going to want to sign up for keys. And so the people signing up for keys are generally going to be worse players because they're not going to care as much about getting the crests. Um, it's a very nitpicky thing, but I'm not a huge fan of this. I think just this is probably fine, but if they keep going down this route, I don't think this is necessarily the best structure to get people to list keys, is to like just start heaping on rewards for them, because I do think that's going to cause like a weird dichotomy where the most people who care the most about getting crests are all going to want to list their key so they get their crests quicker, whereas the people who don't care as much generally are not going to be quite as good as players, just in a general sense. They are going to just be the ones applying for keys. So group leaders get more valor stones is the next one. It's the same thing. This also implies, the cope among a lot of high-end people is that they're going to get rid of valor stones. If you don't know why, because if you're a regular player, you probably always have 2,000 valor stones. You're like, why do they want to get rid of these? It's because the really high-end people, they normally play like on a bunch of alts too. They get to their like super high score on their main character, then they start playing an alt, and then they have to farm 2,000 valor stones, upgrade with it, farm 2,000 more valor stones. They want to get rid of them really badly. I do think it is mostly a very high-end player problem, so I don't really care about that. But this is the same thing with crests. Just be careful with the rewards that you give, in my opinion. Next is Group Finder will try to suggest players with similar skill as you. So when you list your key, they're going to try to do similar skill. So this means you can probably be, it's like what I said in the first one. You can probably set it to, okay, I want it to be within 100 score of me, 50 score of me, whatever. That's probably how they're going to determine skill. I doubt it's going to be anything more than that. This is obviously a good thing overall. Like if you are 2,500 and it's only 3,500 applies for your key, that can be a bad thing. Like for some people that'd be awesome. It's like, wow, this person's going to come in and carry my key. But that can come with other baggage. You could be worried that you're not going to play well enough for that player. You can be worried that player is going to talk down to you or crap on you and your play ability or whatever. So it is good in general. I'm interested in that. It doesn't affect me too much, but it is seemingly a good thing. Next up, we have group, and the final one, Group Finder recommends similar playstyle or goals. So what I assume this means is it's like, again, what I said in the first thing, where it's like weekly no lever, push key, push +2, maybe like +2ing a key is an option, super Zerg, like you could even have a crazy option like trying MDI routes or something like that, right? That could be a possible option in there as well. I think that's interesting as well. I think even more than the other one, the similar skill one, because for me, it depends literally what I'm doing, right? So like today when I was doing keys, I was just trying to increase my score a little bit. I mentioned I'm almost at resilient, trying to finish off my resilient keys for this season. And so I was actually increasing my score. But at some point, if I didn't have enough time that week or whatever, I might just want to be doing 10s and just fill my vault, right? And in that case, I'm just looking for no levers. We're just going to go through. We're just going to slog through this 10. We're going to blast through the 10 or we're going to slog through the 10 and get it done. So that's one interests me a lot. So overall, I think this is really good, right? They're trying to make positive changes to the Group Finder system, which is obviously still outdated and a bit flawed. They've already made tons of improvements since Dragonflight or whatever, when they started messing with it more, putting the icons in, having a little bit more filtering, and just slightly better on the UI end. It's still not great, right? And just kind of customizing this as well. I think that we are getting a slightly newer UI with this as well. In Manette, I can't remember if that was exactly announced, but I do believe it was. I could be off on that, but I think so. And so I think it's generally a good thing. You're going to get better stuff, more ways. You'll have like some setting thing up here to set your settings and all of your different, or just will be in this filter setting or whatever, and you can set all your preferences up, and then you can list your group. Right now, I literally only list a group if I need to get a key done and I've been declined for like a half hour straight. generally I don't get declined that much. Honestly, it's not even because I make videos or anything. Nobody knows me or anything. I'm not that famous or anything. It's just that I generally have good eye level and decent enough score to where the key levels that I'm doing, people will gladly take me along because they assume with between the eye level and between the score, they just assume that I'm going to be very good in those keys. Now I'm assuming once I get, if I was trying to do like 15s and 16s and stuff, I would start getting declined pretty heavily, right? Just like I used to when I was trying to do keys, not knowing how to play the game, like really focusing on making sure my score was good, not only my item level. Because I'm like, if I have a high item level, they should just invite me. Well, that's not the way it works, unfortunately, for myself and many others. So yeah, I don't list my key very much. What would make me list my key more is knowing that it's going to be people with similar goal as me applying, so there's no drama. And then also, there's a leaver penalty now. If somebody leaves, at least there's like the idea that they might get punished basically for it. So yeah, it's going to be more likely for me if they do something like this to do a key. Now let's quickly, since we've gone over all this, let's quickly talk about the idea of a solo queue, because that was like the big thing that people were talking about with this. Obviously, as I went through, there's nothing expressly in there about solo queuing. The first one kind of lays a framework for that. Do I think solo queue is a good idea for this? I think kind of. In some ways, yes. In some ways, no. Obviously, for pushing, you're always going to have your own groups. If you want to push keys, and you can meet people in solo queue to do that. So right now in the Dungeon Finder, we have heroics. So I remember when heroics became, queuable or whatever. By this time, I don't even know if mythic was added yet, but heroics were not super hard by the time that they added this. At least that's what I remember. Once this was happening, once this happened, I was queuing for heroics all the time. I used to do, once they first put this in, especially on alts and stuff like that. So would I do more Mythic Plus if I could queue for it? Absolutely, because when you queue for it, there's something. So, is it good for the very high end scene? Not necessarily. It's not necessarily bad either. You're still going to find people whether you do it this way or another way. But for the super casual people and for even like mid tier people, it's actually probably super good if they did add a solo queue. For me, I don't know. It's hard to say since I'm mostly joining other people's groups anyways. I guess it would mostly be the same thing because I don't know if I'm joining a good group or not. I have general ideas of servers I don't want to interact with, so I'd hope you'd be able to have some sort of settings that you could like not queue into certain types of groups or something like that. I know they would not allow me to just exclude the certain servers that I don't want to play with, but that would be nice if I could though. So would I use it? Probably, because it's going to be similar experience for me, probably. But I would absolutely use it on my alts. So a lot of times I'm nervous about playing my alts in Mythic Plus because it's like, oh man, especially honestly, I'm actually more willing to like tank on my alts than I am the DPS on them because getting declined you're going to get declined all the time when you're doing someone else's key and you don't have that score and item level like we talked about before. But if I could just queue for it, I would be much more willing to do more keys, and it will increase the total number of keys done. But what you're also going to get, this isn't necessarily a bad thing, but you're going to get a lot of newer people to Mythic Plus, which is a good thing in general, and lesser skilled people queuing for it now that they don't have to go through that group finder tool and they can just click find group. And there's going to be a lot of friction between people who know about Mythic Plus and these new people who don't. And because it's been so much time without this, if they were to put one in, I think it could cause a lot of conflict. And I know that they generally try to avoid that, which is why they haven't done it yet, right? Despite some people asking for it and whatnot, they have not gone that route. And they're like, no, you should really make a group for this and try to put together a group and communicate and be like, hey, are we all on the same page and stuff like that. And they've really pushed for that, and I do admire that. But I do think it would get more keys done. If you just wanted to get more keys done, absolutely it would, because I'd be doing keys on my alts, and I would I would have my main, I would still use the pre-made group finder if I needed to. But on my alts, I would absolutely use this. And it's not that I wouldn't use it on my main either. If it worked really well, I would use the solo queue on my main as well. I don't think it makes it too much more soulless, because generally speaking, my talking in a key is, so like I did a key earlier, and I thought we were gonna have to slash abandon it because the tank fell off the map randomly and caused a wipe or whatever. And I'm like, "LOL, did you fall off?" So I typed that, and he goes, "Yeah, sorry," and nobody said anything else. At one point, it was kind of close to timing. We had like 2 or 3 minutes left. It was like a plus 12 hauls, and the the rogue said, like towards the end, they're like, or the rogue said after we wiped, he said, we could still time it if we don't wipe again. He was right about that. We played pretty clean the rest of the way, and then the rogue said something on the last boss, like use damage pots if you can, just to make sure we timed it and stuff like that. And then I said, GG's, thanks for the group, or I said something like, it was like a little rough, but we made it, or something like that, right? That's all the communication that there actually was in that. Like, there wasn't like this big communication because we put together the group and group finder, right? And even with a wipe, there wasn't even any flaming. There was just kind of like some hesitancy from some of us, like myself, like, are we going to time this? Should we keep going with this? And then we did, and we finish it. Everyone's happy. We all leave. The end, right? Everybody's good. The tank did say, "Thanks for not giving up on me." I thought that was kind of nice, and we all said, "No problem, man." And but that was all the communication. Most of the communication came after the key was over. So I don't know. It's not gonna. It has nothing to do with guilds, really. There are some Mythic Plus guilds, but there aren't a lot of them. So it's an interesting conversation to get into. But to wrap it all into one here, I generally think the group finder improvements that they're discussing are going to be very, very good. It doesn't sound like a solo queue is imminent or anything like that. But in the future, if there was a solo queue, I wouldn't be surprised. And I don't think it would overall hurt the scene very much. And yeah, I still think the highest, ranked players or the best skilled players will eventually find each other. They'll continue to make groups together and not use the group finder, or not use the auto queue thing or whatever. They'll continue to play together. I think not much will change ultimately. So I think it's a fine thing, and it'll just, not much will change in a bad way. I think more people will do more keys. There will be some conflict. Can we navigate that conflict? If so, then it'll be a good thing. So that's my general thoughts on this. So that'll be it for this one, guys. As always, I do ask you to please subscribe to the channel. If you're already a subscriber, I encourage you to check out the Patreon. And other than that, everybody, have a good one.